Welcome to another edition of Close Mode, the enterprise sales show. I'm Brian Dietmeyer, CEO of Close Strong. And today I'm lucky to be with Edie Berntson. And Edie is kind of director of everything, sales enablement, sales recruiting, training at Positive Promotions, and is in Patchogue, New York. How did I do?
Yeah, I live in Patchogue, New York. My office is in
practicing
New
my
York,
hog.
Long Island.
So welcome to the show, Edie.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Thank you
in our
for having
pre-call, not surprisingly, given what you do for a living, you said you had a passion for sales training. What do you think's working well with training today?
Yes. In my opinion, I think the thing that works well with training today is engagement. I think no matter if it was last year, 10 years ago, whatever, I think engagement is the key and the fundamentals for making a training program work and function. I personally like to call it a lovebird session. Right. Whenever I do any type of training, I always like to have more than one person in the training classes, like trainees, because it promotes the engagement. They learn from each other. And I feel as though that the interaction between the individuals, right. I'm just the facilitator and the person who's mapping it through them, but they're the ones who are actually doing all the work. So I feel like the engagement portion is like the key to a successful.
And were you able to get Lovebird session by HR?
Well, I actually am the one who does all the Lovebird sections. So, they've approved my Lovebird connections because I do need to have more than one Lovebird in my classroom to make it work. So that helps.
My sister raised Lovebirds and I had them, but we won't go there. All right. So when you talk about engagement, they're cool animals, by the way. But when you talk about engagement, I have an idea of what that means. You're saying it's like a key. How would you define engagement?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you have to think about engagement in reference to like learning styles, right? So one of the things that people don't realize about me is that I'm actually dyslexic. So I learn differently than the person who sits next to me and the person who sits in front of me. So I have to make sure as a trainer that I am connecting on every single person's aspect and how they learn. So I actually have an assessment that I give every single new hire that comes on board, and it tells me their learning behaviors and their learning styles. So I can make sure that, number one, I'm sitting them next to or connecting them to someone who is going to benefit from them and vice versa, as well as making sure I check those boxes. My training has content that they are given as far as like an outline. They're given content as far as like the module information. They're given videos, they're given drill downs, they're given conversations, like all of these aspects. I'm making sure that I encompass all the engagements in reference to hitting the mark for every single person, because I have to be cognitive of how people learn and how people engage with each other.
I realized when we first met that what I like about this call, and it happens rarely, is so you do a lot of your own training internally, but I also do want to talk to you a little bit about the external market. And I'm assuming there's a reason you buy or build and deliver all your own training internally. What do you think training vendors, the big sales training companies, what could they be doing better?
So I feel as though, in my opinion, right, for my industry, our sales process and our sales training is not necessarily very cookie cutter, right? Like, yes, there's a sales process, and most companies have the same type of sales process. They all have the type of same lingo, right? Like what the actions are, but how it interprets and like the placement and how you present and the questions you ask, all of those things are all built based off the business. Like, we're in the industry where I have the opportunity where I have sales reps that have one call closes, that they can call a customer. I need a quote. Here's my PO, get my business. Even though you're understanding like their discovery, like the discovered questions of like what they're doing it for, what's the event, all of those other things, they're not having the whole laid out situation where they're taking that discovery, getting past the gatekeeper, offering value statements, offering presentations and benefits and all of those lovely things. But then I have another side of the business where we do that, right? So I think being able to have something customized for myself based off of what we do as as a corporation. But I also have to say, like, there's one company that we do use, and when we use them, it's
Okay.
for like ongoing training stuff, like a refresher course per se. So with the refresher courses, like, and I love this company because I actually have one trainer I always will request, and I will always use her because she and I see eye to eye. Before we even entertained having any type of ongoing education, I made sure to
Yeah.
share with her my curriculum, what I do, what we talk about, what our terms are. But I think sometimes whenever you're going to incorporate a outside vendor, I like to incorporate them based off of what my needs
Well,
are and not what they want to tell me
yeah.
what my needs
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I also have to say, like, the message that I get from the vendor that we currently use, the message that I get from them is the same message I'm sending.
Okay.
It's just that they're delivering in a different way. Their terminology might be a little different, right? So I can talk to them blue in the face to my sales team about training, ongoing, whether it's ongoing education, coaching opportunities, or onboarding, right? But sometimes they might learn differently just because it's a different person delivering the message. Same message,
Yeah.
it's just a
Yeah.
delivery
I get
is
that. And you,
different.
you
I don't
mentioned
know if that
coaching.
makes sense.
So who does the coaching in your organization? Is it you or is it a frontline manager?
It really depends on the team. My VP will tend to tap into me to help do coaching opportunities with like my account managers, which I help with all the time. Like last June we were in a trade show and I was having breakfast with one of my sales reps, and she's talking about, the struggles. I'm like, it's like sometimes you just have to start at the bottom. Like you have to look at the bigger picture and how you want to grow your business. So we had an opportunity to have a coaching opportunity at that time. And of course, whenever I had those types of conversations with any sales rep, I'm always relaying the information of what was discussed, what my
Yeah.
recommendations were, and how it progressed, right? Because I want my leadership team to understand what type of message is being delivered so that they can tie it back to future conversations with them. So not only am I having conversations and coaching opportunities with the team on a personal level, but also on a business level whenever it comes from my manager at
Yeah.
my leadership asking, hey, can you help me with this? So, it kind of goes hand in hand. I also will help guide as far as like I'll have conversations with our other sales supervisors, like, hey, listen, I know that such and such is struggling. What are they struggling on? What do they need help on? Do you want me to build some type of program or some type of coaching opportunity so we can get them to the level you need? So it's really having that open dialogue with my leadership to determine if it's something they would like me to facilitate or if they would like to be given the data for them to facilitate themselves. Because some reps, depending on who they are, they might be receptive to different people or different messages or a relationship. So you have to kind of take all of that stuff into consideration. But I will always
Okay,
support no
cool.
matter
Yeah, and
which
I
way
have
the
two
coaching
reactions
has
to
to
that. One
happen.
is, you have, as they say, carried a bag. You've been a salesperson, so I think that really helps as I'm hearing you talk through
Yes.
that. The other thing that occurs to me, as we're talking about positive promotions approach to training, it's very individualized. It's very just in time. Is that fair? I don't hear so much about rolling out courses, but I'm hearing a lot more. What's your learning style? What does this person need at this moment? Is that fair?
Yeah, whenever it goes to ongoing education, absolutely. Whenever it is onboarding, I have an entire plan. Like, I mean, they have to go through customer service training, then they have to understand, how the business works and do ride-alongs with other departments to see, how things kind of connect. And then we start diving into like the sales process and the sales training, and then like getting past the gatekeeper, tricks and drill downs and developing their own voice, basically, because I'm a huge
Yeah.
advocate that scripts are not the way. Like, I don't believe in scripts because at the end of the day, the one thing I will tell my sales team over and over and over and over and over again, the thing I preach every day, is that our customers are not buying from positive
Yeah.
promotions. They are buying from the sales rep. So the only way that you're going to have a connection with your customer and actually build that relationship is that you have to be yourself. I will give you the things to where you can get past the gatekeeper, and I'll give you the way to help you, support you to what you need to say or how you need to say something to get that person interested. But at the end of the day, you have to sound like your own voice. I can say
Yeah.
something until I'm blue in the face because that's how I talk. But if it's not something you would
Yeah,
say,
it's
then why
interesting
would you
how
say it?
authenticity
So
has I think thankfully excuse me, thankfully raised itself in business, in human life in general, but in business, because
yes,
you can only be yourself. So if you're not authentic, it's pretty difficult. I think that's actually good
right.
advice.
Yeah, it's like whenever we talk about during our my gatekeeper conversation or training program, right? One of the things to talk about is like what I would say whenever I was a sales rep, hi, Edie with Positive. I'm really hoping that you can, help me or send me in the right direction, right? Because it allows the person who's receiving the call, the gatekeeper, to kind of put their guard down. Because think about it this way: everybody loves whenever
Yeah,
somebody says, "Hey, can you help me with something?" Everyone's like,
yeah,
"Heck yeah, let's go! What do you need help with?" It allows that wall to come down. So it's one of those things where if that's what I say, I want you to know what it does for me, but how would you take it and interpret into your own voice? That's all it is taking that data and that script or those words, and how do you take it and make it your own voice? I would never, there's certain things I would never say, and it would sound, completely like
right.
inaccurate, and
Yeah,
it wouldn't have been authentic to myself. So I think it's important for reps to understand that we're all human, and customers are not looking for the car salesman, and you have to make sure
yeah,
that that's what
yeah.
you're not
It's interesting that
delivering.
there's so much process that's been brought into selling, which is good, and also a lot of technology, which is also good. And a gentleman I was interviewing the other day, who was a fan of both process and technology, believes that empathy is like the number one quality for a good rep, and it's so good. I think it's that blending of art and
Yes,
science, right? And how we prep salespeople, authenticity, empathy, that
it's
kind of
totally
thing.
true.
So I've another question for you. A lot of back to sort of outside providers, and I have a bias on this, so I hope I'm not leading the witness. But a lot of training. I mean, sales training way back in the day was all about personality and human relationships, right?
Mm,
Go in and always look on his desk, look
yes,
at his pictures, and then I think it was probably around the 80s
right.
somewhere where this notion of a selling process came into play, which was a good, a good shift, I think.
Hmm.
But I don't feel like there has been a massive change. There's a lot of rollouts of here's our 5 stages to selling value, and I feel like that kind of what I call blank form methodology has been rolling out for years and years and years, and then it's up to the rep to fill in that blank form on their deal. And I just wonder what your perspective is on that. Like, do you think that's fair that some or a big chunk of sales training is kind of stuck in something they've been doing some way a long time? And if so, what would better look like? What's a future state look like for training?
I say yes and no. Like, I think it's like a little mixture of both. I think it's one of those things where, it's always been kind of pounded in your head, like previous years of, this
Right.
is your first step. Then from
Yeah.
there, you're going to do this. And then after that, you're going to do this. And then after that, you're going to do this. Like, it's like regimented, right? Well, in reality, that's not how it is anymore. I am a firm believer that I have to learn. If I'm talking to a customer, I want to learn one personal thing about that person, one personal thing. And it's not necessarily because I want to use it as a reason, or like I don't know, like I don't know the right word to use, but
I
I
Yes.
use it as a way of connecting. And I think that's the thing, is like I think that we're not connecting. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're not taking that knowledge and we're not connecting it to the customer, because at the end of the day, people buy emotionally, and it really depends on the decision maker you're talking to and
Yeah.
what buy-in they have into the sales process, right? So I mean, I could be talking to three different people that are making the decision of a promotional event, right? I could have a CFO, I could have the buyer, and I can have the manager who is executing it, right? All three of these people have different things that is going to trigger them and what they're looking for. As a salesperson, I've got to understand and recognize who my audience is and make sure I'm hitting the mark on each one of them, because it's not a cookie cutter situation, right? with my CFO, I'm going to look at what the bottom line is. I'm going to look at how is it going to be beneficial for him with his ROI, right? Whenever I'm talking to the manager, I'm going to look at him and trying to figure out a way
Yeah.
to where it makes life easier for him, because that's what it's all about. Whenever it comes to the buyer, who is the one who's actually emotionally engaged with this whole program, I'm going to look about how he's going to
Yeah.
make people feel, right? So it's not cookie cutter, and you can't, I don't think that or let me rephrase that. I don't think we can justify making everything
Yes.
so
Yeah.
linear,
As
because it's
I think
not.
it was Mike Tyson who used to say, you have a plan and until you get punched in the throat. Maybe it was punched in the face. But but I think that it's like you have this plan and then the
Exactly.
deal starts, and yeah, it's rarely linear, and we found the same with coaching. It's like, yeah, this is what a coaching process should look like, and then it all
Yeah.
blows
Well, I
up.
think, right. But I think a lot of the time too, like I'm in charge of projects, right? So not only do I oversee all the sales training and any type of training that happens, but I also oversee like projects and like tangible things, right? So I kind of put two and two together. What's my end goal, right? Like, what's my objective? Like, what do I want to happen from this project? Or
Yeah.
what do I want to happen whenever I make the sales call? Or what is my objective for my sales training, right? I have an end goal. How I get
Yeah.
to that end goal, I don't give a shit. I just need to get to that end goal. And sometimes it could start over here, come down here, all over the place. But at the end of the day, you have an end goal. Just like whenever we have new programs that are rolling out, like I had a conversation with my VP the other day, and he wants to roll out a new program for lead generations, right? I'm like, okay, what's your goal? What's your end goal? What do you want to result from this, right? And he tells me, like, okay,
Right.
so now I'm going to start working backwards. And I think sometimes you have, like, even with the sales process, again, it's not a linear thing. You need to figure out what your objective is. Like every call that one of the things I talk about in my training class is that every call that the rep has to make, they have to have an objective. What is your objective for that call? Is it to make an appointment? Is it to close the business? Like, because all different calls are different stages. So you have to be able to understand what your
Yeah.
objective is. And that's your
Yeah.
focus on how you're
It's
going to get
interesting. I
there.
was just having a
That's all
discussion
it
with someone
is.
the other day about discovery, which is basically research, right? And any if you take a market research course, it's going to tell
Exactly.
you always start with the end in mind, and then you go back and develop the instrument. And the instrument in this case is questions, and it's kind of basic, but we do see that a lot. It's like, well, let's develop our questions, and it's like, well, wait, which question is leading to this exact output that we're trying to get to at that moment? Yeah, I completely agree.
Right.
So I mentioned this before, and I'm wondering how you feel, because I think your company's executing it. This idea of just in time enablement. What percentage of your efforts would you say? You say that, hey, there's that whole linear onboarding. We're getting people through this, but what percentage of your efforts do you think are just in time to go? This human needs this at this moment. Okay.
For us, everything is just in time. We excuse me. Our business our business platform, or let me rephrase that. Pre-COVID, everything was all based
Okay.
off of a timeline, based off of campaigns. Okay, so a campaign is a national event that happens. Nurses Week, Doctors Day, Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Like they have specific dates that things happen, right? Well, over the years and after COVID, what we've learned for our business is that it's changed. It's changed some. That our customers are not coming to us for turnkey solutions about events always. They're coming to us for service related programs, like for instance, like with healthcare, offering different types of services for patient care, quiet kits to promote, noise, better scores and HCAP scores for the hospital with noise. So I have employed, like, empowered my leadership to think about the sales process differently. In my opinion, now that COVID has changed our business model, is that we need to focus on our customers as a service of what we can do and what we can offer, our capabilities, and then the events and all the things that are based off of like time frames and like being like the right place at the right time. All of that is just,
Yeah.
those are lanya. Those are the low hanging fruit. Those are the extras. You know what I mean? But I think we have to, as a sales organization, I think we have to approach differently now, because We do offer so many other capabilities. We do offer so many other services. But I think it's one of those things where if you can get your customer to respect you and to understand that you're just
Yeah.
not a water bottle company, a pen company, to understand that we offer so much more, they're going to come back to you. They're going to come to you, and then you have developed a relationship, which means that you have understood what their true needs are, what their plans are, how they want people to feel, how you're going to affect their business, how you're going to affect their employees' lives, how you're going to affect their community's lives. Like all of these aspects all come to light, but it's all about how you're going to present yourself. Like if we're asking the right questions on the initial front end to expand our services and our capabilities, all of the other stuff just kind of like,
Yep.
it all
Yeah,
just kind of
and it's
falls into
interesting. What I'm hearing as
place.
you're talking through that is that whole process is decommoditizing, and your business someone could easily say, I can get the same logoed stuff somewhere else. You just decommoditize with that whole discussion. You also,
Mm-hmm.
as a good Cajun would, you use the word lanyap, which I love. Can you, for folks who aren't familiar with that,
Yes.
can you? I caught it in there. What is it? Yeah.
So even though I live in New York,
Yep.
I'm originally born and raised Louisiana girl. Lagniappe is the extra. It's the little extra, like whenever you go to a restaurant and you order of wings and it's only supposed to have 10 and you get
Yes.
like 12. You're
Yeah.
like, ooh, that's the lagniappe. That's the extra. That's the extra goodness that you get. So I look at
Yeah.
low-hanging fruit in our events as lagniappe
Just a little
because
extra. Yeah, I heard it
that's what it
the first
is.
time I heard it explained, and it's cool because it put the vision in my head of like the old stores you would go into and you would get like whatever it was, a pound of sugar, and it was they dig into the thing and they dump the pound in, and then little lanyap at the end, just a little more. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. A little lagniappe. It's
that
little,
well,
a
that,
little extra. Exactly.
yeah, I
It's
love that
true. It's
word.
lagniappe.
So this has been fun. And as I said at the outset, one of the reasons I wanted to talk is one, you carried a bag. Two, you build your own training, you deliver your own training, you do your own coaching. And that's, we're typically
Yes.
talking to people again who are managing that process of a bunch of people. So it's very cool. And what it occurs to me is it allows you to do this really zeroed in kind of one-on-one stuff, which in my opinion should be the goal of the just in time
Yeah.
stuff going forward, which is why I was asking you that question. And you've done it, and you've had to do it all, in house to make that happen. But it certainly sounds like it's paying off.
Yeah. I actually developed it from scratch. Yeah, I actually developed it from scratch. When I came on board, they didn't have a training program at all. Like their sales training was go through customer service training with the customer service rep, and they hired this third party company. And dear
Yeah.
God, I was like, what is this? Like the owner of the company actually argued with me to tell me that we had cold calls. I'm like, no, we actually don't have true cold call. Like it's not a true cold call. Our calls are actually warm. It's like the only difference is that my team is
Right.
introducing themselves from the company. So it's not a true cold call because
Right.
our customers knew who we were. And he was like, well, no, this is how
This
it's going to be. I'm like, okay, well, we can't use your
no, let me tell
service
you
if
how
you're
it's
not
going to
willing
be.
to. I'm like, yeah,
Well, yeah.
we're not signing
If you're
that contract again.
if you're
Thanks for
selling
coming to.
sales training, and your sales approach sucks, that's just not a really good leading indicator, I would think. So I think,
He had great
yeah,
concepts. Look, concepts were great. They really were. But the fact that it was like, no, no, this is how it's going to be. I was
yep.
like,
Well,
no,
yeah, and Edie,
I appreciate you.
that's what I was
Yeah.
getting to earlier with a lot of this out of the box stuff, which is how the industry has worked
Yeah.
for a long time. Maybe with some light customization, but by and large,
Yes.
it's out of the box stuff. And I think what you've built is where providers need to be helping you do those kinds of things, or quite frankly, I think more people are going to do what you're doing
Yes.
and just do it all in house. So yeah, this has
Right.
been cool. It's been really fun, and it was fun to get a new word and a new definition for people. And we talked a little bit about cow stealing, and maybe that will be that prior to the show. So maybe that will be our next show. We'll dive deep into Edie's background.
Well, of course. And then we can talk about,
Got it.
throat
Cool.
punching and
This
other
has been
things.
really fun. Thank you.